Even a long wait couldn't dampen the enthusiasm of North Korean leader Kim Jong Un for his comrade. At 3 a.m., much later than scheduled, Kim patiently waited on the runway and beamed as he greeted his Russian counterpart. A handshake? A warm hug. North Korea's news agency, KCNA, said that Kim couldn't contain his joy at the touching reunion. An impressive motorcade escorted the leaders into Pyongyang's capital. The streets were adorned with Russian flags and portraits of Putin. A grand welcoming ceremony featured enormous portraits of the two leaders and was witnessed by tens of thousands of North Koreans. The Urus, a super luxury car dubbed the Russian version of Rolls-Royce, was a gift from Putin to the North Korean leader. Putin himself has used an Urus Senat since 2018, replacing his Mercedes-Benz S600. It has a bulletproof shell, reinforced glass, a protected floor, solid rubber tires, integrated weaponry, and a sealed oxygen supply, bringing the car's weight to over 7 tons. Putin personally drove the gifted limousine, carrying Kim Jong Un through the streets of Pyongyang. In return, Kim presented Putin with a pair of Fungsan hunting dogs, considered the national treasure of North Korea. Everyone knows Putin loves dogs. One of his pets even startled former German Chancellor Angela Merkel once. If you think these gifts have no hidden meanings, you'd better think again. Very sincerely and warmly, the two leaders signed an agreement amidst bright smiles. Shortly afterward, South Korea abruptly decided to reconsider sending weapons to Ukraine, and Japan expressed concerns about regional security. The West is now on edge. What exactly did Putin and Kim discuss and sign in Pyongyang that could potentially change the world's future forever? First, let me give you some background information. The meeting between Putin and Kim Jong Un took place under unique circumstances. After 2 decades of frozen relations since 1948, the Soviet Union played a part in the formation of North Korea. However, in 1990, the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia shifted its political direction, and distanced itself from Pyongyang. In 2000, after becoming president, Putin visited North Korea. But for decades after, there was no significant relationship between the two. North Korea mainly relied on trade with China to support its embargoed economy. However, in 2022, Putin made a decision that changed the world we live in. Right after the Kremlin launched its special military operation in Ukraine, the West tried every possible way to isolate and sanction Russia. In that context, Russia strengthened its relations with other countries like China, providing Moscow with a vast market, machinery and technology, and Iran supplying drones. And let's not forget about this particular friend. In September 2023, Kim Jong Un visited Russia. Since then, Russia has supported North Korea in accessing critical technologies. Recently, North Korea sent balloons carrying tons of leaflets to South Korea and continued missile tests and satellite launches, reportedly with Russian technological support. Moscow's backing could also help North Korea build a fleet of submarines and intercontinental ballistic missiles, threatening the trilateral alliance of South Korea, Japan, and the US in unprecedented ways. In return, North Korea is believed to supply Russia with various weapons, an area where it excels. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, noted increased activity around North Korean mushroom farms, a sign of troubling times for Ukraine, as the US and its Western allies scramble to supply weapons to this bottomless pit. Then, on June 19th, Putin returned to Pyongyang after 24 years. The result of that visit was a document with a name you probably won't remember: the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty between Russia and North Korea. The KCNA published the full text of the agreement, which includes cooperation on nuclear energy, space exploration, food security, and energy, all of which are very important. However, the most crucial clause which stole the spotlight was Clause B. It states that if either country is invaded and dragged into conflict, the other must immediately deploy all available means to assist militarily and otherwise. The two countries will also refrain from signing any treaties with a third country that infringes on the interests of the other, and will not allow any nation to use their territory to harm the security or sovereignty of the other. Note that the last time a similar agreement was signed was in 1961 when the Soviet Union pledged military intervention if North Korea was attacked. After the Soviet Union dissolved, the treaty was replaced in 2000 with a weaker security guarantee. Now it seems that North Korea and Russia have fully restored their Cold War-era military alliance. So, what does this new agreement mean for both sides in the world? First, for Russia, this treaty is like a direct blow to the US, which is trying to isolate and defeat Russia in Ukraine. Putin and Kim have both openly expressed their desire to promote a multipolar world order, ending US dominance, and lifting sanctions and restrictions on their countries. Putin even called this an unprecedented document and pledged to protect North Korea from dangerous and aggressive enemies. The enemies he referred to are quite obvious. Kim Jong Un has increasingly shown hostility towards South Korea. Earlier this year, he announced abandoning long-term goals of reunification with the South and considers South Korea an enemy to be defeated, even if it means using nuclear weapons. He has also frequently launched missiles towards Japan, demonstrating a provocative stance towards North Korea's former colonizer. In this context, the Joint Defense Treaty between North Korea and Russia signals that in the event of war on the Korean Peninsula, Moscow will come to Pyongyang's aid. If so, regional tensions will become increasingly complex. This would be bad news for international efforts to stop North Korea's nuclear pursuits. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida expressed concerns that today's Ukraine could be East Asia tomorrow. Meanwhile, South Korea criticized the Russia-North Korea agreement as sophisticated and absurd. I don't know. Isn't there an alliance with a similar clause that if any member is attacked, the whole alliance will retaliate? Moreover, South Korea plans to reconsider its policy of not providing lethal weapons to Ukraine for use in battles against Russia. Not to mention, Putin has declared that he won't rule out developing military technical cooperation with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, according to the recently signed document. That statement essentially formalizes what the West claims has already been happening. As I mentioned, the US and its allies accuse Russia of transferring technology to North Korea to produce more mushrooms, more missiles, and that Russia has received weapons from North Korea as the Ukrainian front depletes Moscow's reserves. So, imagine what it would be like if this fall Russia had an additional 10,000 shells daily to fire at Ukraine. In that case, whether it's the US or its Western allies supporting Ukraine, they won't be able to keep up, no matter how hard they try. At that point, all they could do is consolidate defenses as best as they can, or everything you just heard could be baseless fabrications from the US and its Western allies, projecting their own tactics onto others. Kim Jong Un has affirmed that this robust treaty is nothing but a genuinely constructive, promising, and purely peaceful and defensive agreement. The treaty also specifies that joint defensive actions must comply with the laws of both nations and Article 51 of the UN Charter, which recognizes the right to self-defense for member states. Is this an evil alliance against the West, or simply a legitimate self-defense effort? You be the judge. However, we cannot deny that the handshake between Kim and Putin has raised concerns about escalating tensions in Northeast Asia, as it deepens the divide between the US, Japan, South Korea on one side, and Russia, North Korea, China on the other. This is why the leaders of Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea have been invited to the NATO summit in Washington this July. What will their next steps be? Will there be constructive decisions contributing to true peace? Or will tensions continue to escalate under the pretext of ending conflicts? What do you think?